They said the questions were over. They said the titles were settled. They said the royal drama had cooled down. But now, a fresh storm is exploding behind palace walls. And at the center of it all are two names no one expected to be under this kind of microscope again: Archie and Lilibet. Because according to growing reports, what started as Piers Morgan's loud criticism has now become something far more dangerous. Whispers of private palace concern, paperwork scrutiny, and silent tension nobody wants to address publicly.
She was never pregnant at all. Instead, the videos embolden conspiracy theorists. They're calling it Megspiracy.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Princess
Lilibet Diana had been christened. Why would they use a title to their children that represents an institution they loathe so much?
Piers Morgan is charging in full force, and this time the noise around his claims is not fading, it is multiplying. Reports from both the United States and the United Kingdom are surfacing at the same time, and insiders are said to be backing pieces of the story quietly, carefully, almost nervously. That is what makes this feel different. This is not random gossip shouted into the air, this is controlled silence. And controlled silence in royal circles usually means one thing: something serious is being handled behind closed doors. But here is where eyebrows shoot up. The focus reportedly is not Prince Harry. It is not Meghan Markle. It is Archie and Lilibet, their records, their titles, their status, their place in the line of succession. Suddenly, missing signatures, confusing documentation, and even questions surrounding a christening with no clear formal church trail are all being dragged into the light. Why now? Why these details? Why this pressure?
All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. If they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family because it puts the royal family in a very invidious position, because the royal family, there are certain things they can and can't do by law, and Meghan and Harry know that.
Harry and Meghan have never provided any evidence for that highly incendiary claim. It's not like they haven't had the chance to. After all, they pumped out 6 hours of self-indulgent bilge on Netflix, trashing Britain and the press for its racism.
This crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out.
Royal tradition is built on precision. Names logged, births documented, ceremonies recorded. Every tiny detail matters because the monarchy survives on order. So when reports claim gaps, edits, or unclear records, people do not shrug. They stare. And according to ongoing whispers, Meghan is feeling intense pressure behind the scenes in Montecito as these claims gather heat. If even part of this becomes bigger than rumor, it could ignite a conversation no one in the palace or California wanted reopened. And right at the center of that fire is the question Piers Morgan keeps hammering without mercy. How do Harry and Meghan reject the royal machine publicly while continuing to benefit from royal titles commercially? How do those two realities stand side by side without collapsing under contradiction? He says the answer is simple: hypocrisy. Brutal word, explosive word. And he keeps repeating it because every deal, every brand announcement, every headline still leads with Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Those titles are not background decoration. They are front-facing currency. And now, with Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet entering the narrative, critics argue the value only grows stronger. New names, new attention, new emotional pull, more commercial weight attached to royal identity. That accusation alone has struck a nerve, but now it is colliding with something much larger: legitimacy, protocol, and future consequences.
Everything that Meghan is doing in her pursuit to become a lifestyle billionaire goes completely against the agreement that she made with Prince Harry not to exploit their children for commercial gain.
Harry and Meghan playing games that resulted in people unnecessarily questioning things. Every toxicity thing is result of them.
Now they want to give their kids the titles of prince and princess, even though they don't live anywhere near the royal family. They don't do any duties. They do nothing to deserve it. They live in a mansion in Montecito in California and use their own royal titles to make loads of money.
Then comes the Oprah interview, the moment that still echoes through every new controversy. Meghan claimed Archie was denied a title and implied race concerns were part of the issue. The world exploded. But Piers Morgan never backed down from calling that narrative false and misleading. He pointed to old royal rules under King George V that governed who receives titles and when. According to that framework, Archie's situation at the time was procedural, not personal. Now Now the debate is roaring back because if the original story was incomplete, then what else was framed for sympathy while facts sat quietly in the shadows? That question is what makes this moment dangerous.
With either Archie or Lily, and it needs to happen. They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country.
Apparently, they invited all the royals to Lilibet's christening, but they all declined to come, as if they're all going to get on a plane and fly to California to embrace the people who've been trashing them for the last 3 years. But it looks like from the jungle drums, they have been invited.
A lot of the royal watchers were complaining that they felt like her posts on social media where she barely shows the kids is almost taunting the king, who doesn't know these children, and how unfair this is.
Under long-standing rules, great-grandchildren of a monarch do not automatically receive prince or princess status. That rule was not written for Archie. It applied broadly. Yet once a claim of unfair treatment went global, it placed massive pressure on the institution. Because when millions hear one version of events, the palace eventually has to decide whether silence protects dignity or creates damage. And now, reports suggest internal reviews are looking again at records, timelines, and details linked to those titles. If true, that means the crown may be less concerned with public emotion and more concerned with cold constitutional order. Then the story escalates. Reports from American media circles claim Prince William could support future changes involving titles, not only Harry and Meghan, but Archie and Lilibet too. That possibility alone has stunned royal watchers, because once children are pulled into institutional decisions, the conversation shifts from celebrity feud to monarchy strategy. It becomes about the future, not the headlines of today. Morgan's argument is blunt. If someone is not serving within the royal system, why should official titles remain central? He points to figures like Zara Tindall, who built respected public lives without titles. But Archie and Lilibet are growing up in California, far from royal duty, royal protocol, royal service. So what do those titles mean in practice? Heritage, branding, tradition, symbolism, or something more negotiable than the public assumes? That is the question growing louder by the week. And then comes the most explosive layer of all, paperwork. Reports around Archie's birth certificate, edits to names, conflicting explanations over who requested changes, and confusion around standard formalities have triggered intense speculation. In royal systems, paperwork is not casual. It is sacred. Every amendment creates a trail. Every trail creates accountability. When stories do not align, suspicion fills the silence. Then attention shifts to Lilibet, whose birth in California happened far outside traditional royal rollout structures. No formal Buckingham Palace bulletin. No UK royal medical involvement. No familiar ceremonial choreography. For ordinary families, none of this matters. For children tied to succession, every deviation becomes a headline-sized clue. Now, palace insiders are said to be discussing several possible paths. A quiet freeze, titles remain but fade from real use. A quiet reclassification, names slowly removed from practical royal listings. Or the most dramatic option of all, formal removal if standards tied to recognition are deemed unmet. No spectacle, no public screaming, just one official move from the top. Clean, cold, final. And that is why Meghan is said to be panicking, Harry is reportedly reaching out, and Piers Morgan is louder than ever. Because this is no longer just tabloid warfare. It is a test of power, a test of identity, a test of whether royal titles belong to personal branding or to the crown alone. And if the palace chooses action instead of silence, everything built around those names could change overnight. The doors remain closed, the statements remain polished, but the tension behind them is getting harder to hide. But the deeper shock may not be what is being said publicly. It may be what is no longer being denied privately. Because when a palace chooses silence during rising controversy, veteran royal watchers know that silence can be strategic. It can mean nothing, or it can mean everything. And right now, according to the growing wave of commentary, the atmosphere around this entire saga feels tense, calculated, and strangely unfinished. Meghan and Harry present calm photographs, polished statements, curated appearances, and carefully managed updates. Yet behind that glossy image, critics claim the foundation underneath may be shaking harder than anyone realizes. Piers Morgan keeps returning to one brutal point that cuts through all the emotion. He says the modern image built by Harry and Meghan depends heavily on the royal connection they publicly distanced themselves from. Strip away the titles, remove the palace aura, separate the names from the crown, and suddenly the narrative changes. It no longer becomes the story of rebellious royals rewriting history. It becomes the story of two celebrities who walked away from privilege, criticized the institution for years, and then continued benefiting from the identity attached to it. That reframing is exactly why this matters so much. It is not about vanity. It is about value. And value, once questioned, can collapse fast. According to ongoing reports, Prince Harry may have believed that distance would never weaken royal status. California home, American deals, streaming contracts, interviews, memoirs, it would all happen while the family titles remained untouched forever, permanent, untouchable, beyond debate. But insiders now claim reality may be hitting differently. There are whispers of attempted outreach to senior royals, calls that allegedly go unanswered, messages met with cold delay, and a palace mood that has shifted from emotional family conflict to something colder constitutional management. Once the monarchy views an issue as structural, not personal, family feelings stop leading the room. Protocol does. Piers Morgan has also aimed sharp criticism at King Charles, arguing there were several moments when decisive action could have been taken. After the Oprah interview, after the documentary releases, after the memoir, after repeated public attacks. Yet each time, no dramatic correction arrived. Morgan's claim is that hesitation allowed the issue to grow roots. What could have been contained became normalized. What could have been clarified became complicated. And now, with pressure rising, many eyes reportedly turn toward Prince William as the figure more likely to take a firm and structured line in the future. That is where the children enter the conversation again, and this is what makes the topic so sensitive. George, Charlotte, and Louis represent the direct future line of monarchy. Archie and Lilibet exist in a different branch, yet still connected by blood, title debates, and public fascination. For years, that connection was treated like symbolic family drama. But now, some commentators frame it as something larger, a question of how wide the royal identity should stretch in the modern era. How many titles remain active? Who uses them? Who lives under them? Who profits from them? And who actually serves beneath them? These are not emotional questions. They are institutional ones. Then comes the most dangerous possibility being whispered behind the scenes. Not a public war, but a quiet administrative shift. No giant press conference. No shouting headlines from Buckingham Palace balconies. Just subtle edits. Less official recognition. Reduced references. Names gradually repositioned outside the working royal framework. That kind of move would be devastating precisely because it would be elegant and unemotional. No drama to fight against. No villain to attack. Just reality changing on paper while the world notices too late. And if formal removal were ever considered, the shockwaves would be immediate. Every media partnership built around the Sussex identity would face fresh scrutiny. Every brand introduction using Duke and Duchess language would feel different overnight. Every future project would be forced to answer the same brutal question: what remains when the royal badge is gone? Critics believe that is why nerves are high. Supporters say it is all exaggerated. But even the existence of the debate shows how unstable the issue has become. There is also the emotional side no one fully admits. Harry's public life has long carried the pain of wanting independence while still wanting belonging. Meghan's public image has long balanced ambition, reinvention, and conflict with tradition. Together, they created a new lane outside the palace. But the titles linked them to the old world even as they criticized it. That contradiction may have worked while sympathy was strong and curiosity was high. But as years pass, audiences begin asking harder questions. If the monarchy was so toxic, why keep its labels? If the labels are meaningless, why defend them? If they are meaningful, then why attack the source of that meaning? Those contradictions are where support can erode fastest. Piers Morgan knows exactly why this argument lands. He frames it not as gossip, but as accountability. Whether people love him or loathe him, he keeps hammering one message: institutions survive by protecting their rules. If exceptions are made for fame, media leverage, or emotional pressure, then the rules stop being rules. They become favors. And monarchies, more than most systems, cannot afford to look negotiable. That is why even tiny paperwork stories, title usage questions, and ceremonial inconsistencies suddenly feel explosive. They are symbols of something bigger. Now the world waits for signs. Will the palace continue strategic silence? Will William eventually push Martinization with sharper boundaries? Will Harry and Meghan double down publicly or soften quietly? Will Archie and Lilibet remain central symbols in a battle they never chose? No one outside those rooms knows. But what people do know is this: the conversation is no longer fading. It is intensifying. Every week without clarity creates more suspicion. Every polished photo without answers invites more speculation. Every silence becomes its own statement. And that may be the final twist in this entire saga. For years, Harry and Meghan mastered public narrative through interviews, documentaries, memoirs, and image control. But now they face an opponent that does not need interviews, does not chase cameras, and rarely explains itself. The monarchy can simply wait. It can move slowly. It can act quietly. It can let time do the damage. And if that machine decides to reset the board, it may happen without warning and without apology. So the biggest question remains hanging in the air like thunder that has not yet struck. Is this all just noise stirred by critics and commentators? Or is it the early sound of something serious shifting behind palace doors? Because if the answer is the second one, then the real drama has not already happened. It is only just beginning.